What's good, y'all? So, a lot of men and women, but especially men, are saying right now that dating makes no sense. And honestly, I get it. I can feel the frustration. I see it online. I can see the rejection, that feeling of not being enough. Um, I can see when you get overlooked, when someone ghosts you, or when they choose someone else who looks taller, who's more richer, or more, you could say, put together. I can see how that can make you feel some way. But what I've been realizing in my experience, right? Here's how I want you to see it. Dating isn't like something random, right? It's actually, look at it as a mirror. It reflects back the disconnection we already carry within ourselves that we feel online. Because long before dating apps, long before social media, we learned in childhood to hide certain parts of our personality, the parts of our personality that didn't get recognized, accepted, or loved. And because of that, to survive, we pushed those parts of our personality down. We suppressed those parts of ourselves. And we only showed the side that got us approval with our fathers, with our mothers. And so now in dating, most of us are already leading with those protective parts of our personality. And we show the image that kept us safe, right? Safe from criticism from our parents, safe from embarrassment from our peer groups, safe from feeling not enough. And I think the cost is that the more vulnerable parts of our personality, the ones that want to be seen and loved for who we really are, those parts stay hidden because we suppress them. And I think that's why dating feels it feels like a mirror. The rejection we feel out there is reflecting the rejection we've already lived with inside of ourselves. Now, when you add social media and dating apps into the mix, they don't create connection. I think they amplify the disconnection. These platforms reward attention, but that attention always goes to the protective parts of our personality that we want to show. And for women, that usually means looks. For men, it's status or money. And for a lot of people, men and women who don't fit into those categories, they end up feeling invisible, not even accounted for. They tend to compare themselves to everyone else online, and it only reinforces the feeling of them not feeling not enough. So whether you are getting attention for the surface parts of you, or feeling like you don't measure up at all, the deeper truth is the same thing. The vulnerable parts of our personality that wants genuine intimacy are still unseen. And the result, I think, it's more disconnection. Social media amplifies loneliness, amplifies mistrust, amplifies the feeling of being undervalued. Even when someone, you can say, has good intentions, the system still leaves, you can say, people feeling rejected, or you can say used. And then you have the expectations and pressure. And one of the biggest frustrations I see online, and I hear from men, is that no matter what they do, it's never enough. It's like you're supposed to provide. You're supposed to stay strong. You're supposed to pay for everything and prove your worth to someone you don't even know. You don't even know them yet. You ain't even met them yet. And I get why that feels exhausting. But these expectations don't just come from women. They come from culture. Men were taught their value is in providing and achieving. Women were taught their value is in their looks and their desirability. Those were the parts of their personality that got rewarded. So those are the parts they learned to perform, right? So what happens in dating? Men perform strength and success. Women perform beauty and desirability, you could say. But both end up emotionally cut off from their vulnerable parts of themselves. And because those hidden parts never show up, the connection breaks down, right? That connection breaks down because they're not showing the fullness of it. They're not really showing the fullness of themselves. That's why people leave, you can say, dating, feeling used, feeling exhausted, feeling unseen. Men who can't live, you can say, up to those pressures, they feel rejected and really resentful. And women who don't fit the beauty standard feel more invisible, and that resentment shows up, online in movements, full of anger and bitterness. And so underneath it all, though men and women actually really, they want the same thing. They still want to be seen and loved for who they are who they really are. So another point is ghosting is one of the most, you can say, painful experiences in dating right now. On the surface, it just feels really disrespectful. But the reason you can say it hurts so much is because, I think that it touches the most vulnerable parts of our personality. And those are the parts that want to be chosen without having to perform. The parts that simply want to know, are these parts of me enough? Right? And when someone ghosts you, it doesn't just hurt in the moment. It mirrors those early times in childhood when connection with, you can say, your parents felt unpredictable. When you wanted them to see and value something real about you, right? But they didn't. And they left you feeling undervalued and you feeling unworthy. And I think that's why the pain feels so much bigger than the situation in dating. I think it just wakes up that old unhealed wound. And I think the truth is, ghosting is never, in my opinion, it's never really about you not being enough at the same time. It's really about the other person not being able to hold real connection with you, you could say. Or even with, you could say, themselves. But because both people are leading with, as I said earlier, these protective parts, what you walk away with instead is the opposite. You feel used, you feel rejected, and you feel disposable. And I know that sucks. Now, that sucks. Now, we also, another point is we have hookup culture. Hookup culture is everywhere, and on the surface, again, it makes sense. People are lonely, they're stressed, and sex can feel like an easy way to escape. But most hookups aren't about genuine connection. You're like, duh. But for real, they're about, for the most part, distraction. And I think for men, sex often becomes a way to avoid the deeper feelings underneath. The desperation for closeness, the loneliness of not being emotionally seen, the yearning to be accepted without having to perform. Those feelings, again, were suppressed in childhood because expressing need or vulnerability was judged as weak for a lot of us men, especially living in a single parent household. So instead, we use sex. Sex becomes like this shortcut for us as men. And for women, it's often, you can say, shows up as You'll say chasing validation or using sex as a way to feel safe and secure, and sometimes even to secure financial stability. Because from a young age, many women saw that people valued their looks, them being desirable. So they learned to lead with those parts of their personality. Again, but the cost is that the other parts of themselves, their creativity, their depth, their emotional expression were never really developed. It was suppressed. So sex becomes the strategy to stay safe and get value, while the deeper need for intimacy remains unmet. And so that's why people walk away from, you can say, hookups feeling lonelier than before. Men feel like they are only valued for what they do physically. Women feel like they are only valued for their bodies. And to be real with you, they both end up not being seen. The vulnerable parts of their personality never really entered the relationship or the room, you can say, from the get-go, which is sad. Now, here's where I want you to really listen and understand what I'm saying. Looking at all of this, right? It's easy to say dating is broken, but I don't think it is. I think dating is a mirror. It reflects the parts of our personality we've suppressed, we've denied, and we've disowned, as I spoke about earlier. And I think that's why we keep meeting people who mirror those very parts back to us. And so if you've denied your worth, your value, you'll keep meeting people who undervalue you. If you've disowned your vulnerability, you'll keep meeting people who can't hold space for it. And so dating doesn't create those wounds. It amplifies it. And so the invitation isn't to chase more matches or harden yourself against rejection. You know how men we like to do. I think the invitation is to start sitting with the vulnerable parts of your personality that you've pushed away, that you've denied, disowned, and suppressed, and to actually feel them, listen to them, and give them the care you've been waiting for, or you can say you've been waiting for from someone else. And to also sit with your protector parts of yourself, the ones that stepped in to keep you safe from rejection or from shame. Now, you don't have to fix them. Just value those parts of yourself. Value them, hear them, and let them know that they are safe because they've been protecting you. And when you start to re-own these parts of your personality, they stop being, you can say, hidden from yourself and from others. And they become a natural part of your everyday life. And that's when you stop chasing and you start attracting, because the people who show up for you won't be responding to your mask you put up or your performance. They'll be connecting with the real you in the whole of your personalities. So we back to the beginning. So dating today makes no sense, only if you look at the surface. But if you see it as a mirror to yourself, it can make perfect sense. And it's showing you the parts of your personality waiting to be seen, to be owned, and to be loved. And when you begin to re-own those parts, you stop chasing and you start attracting, because the relationship that come to you will be aligned more with who you really are. Thank you for listening. Hopefully this perspective is useful to you. Awareness Plug. Peace.